Well, it is the weekend, and as the weekend comes, so do all the new movies. And then what we do is we go out to the other coast, the left coast of America, and check in with Michael Snyder and see how everything's going in the movies. Hello, Michael.
Well, hi, Alex, and hello, America. Hello, listeners across the world on GABNet and other devices, and greetings from Hollywood, where we are immersed in films, and we've got a blockbuster this weekend, and then various other little goodies, and we'll get to that right now. Let's start with Doctor Strange, which is the latest in a series of films that could be called the Marvel Cinematic Universe, based on characters and concepts from Marvel Comics. They also have interlocked television programs that we've talked about, but Doctor Strange is based on the Marvel Comics character created in the 1960s by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, who also teamed up to create Spider-Man. And these two characters, I guess, are the leading characters that Ditko helped create, whereas many of the Marvel favorites were co-created by Lee and Jack Kirby. Ditko had a really strange and surreal style that lent itself to the tale of a mystic master of the arts of magic, etc. So Doctor Strange is a new entry here, and of course it's going to somehow fit in to the grand scheme of things that will continue in other films with other characters, including a new Avengers movie, Black Panther and such, but it kind of works as a standalone for me. It's as solid, clear, and straightforward as you're going to find when it comes to superhero origins at the movies. And Doctor Strange is also blessed with a very sharp and witty script and a cast of 5 actors who could each headline an Oscar-worthy film on their own, and most particularly crazy, dazzling, often psychedelic, state-of-the-art special effects that are fully in the service of the story. Basically, the tale is an arrogant surgeon who figures himself a master of the universe type, gets into a horrible accident, loses the control of his hands, his most important physical attribute to be a great surgeon, and goes on a vision quest, a spiritual journey to Kathmandu, where he thinks he can find what he needs to surmount this physical disability. And what he ends up finding is a netherworld of magical powers and wizardry, and he becomes a part of this. And basically, the special effects in this element of the story are so amazing. I mean, they make Inception look like a community theater production. Anyway, we should start with Doctor Strange himself, played by Benedict Cumberbatch. You know, an okay American accent and a kind of nice tongue-in-cheek performance by Cumberbatch. And there are going to be people bitching that this is the latest in a long line of similar heroes in Marvel movies, starting with the first Iron Man, but they're missing the point. Yeah, Doctor Strange and Tony Stark are both arrogant, supremely gifted men with goatees and last names that begin with the letter S. They suffered debilitating injuries that lead them to becoming extraordinary heroes. But, you know, there's a little bit of a difference here. In one case, you're talking about science, and in the other case, it's magic. And one of the other cool things about this movie is the fact that you go to all these lovely locations like Kathmandu, there's London and New York, but they're all bending and twisting depending upon the spells cast. The mentor for Doctor Strange is the Ancient One, played by Tilda Swinton with her head shaved. His love interest, another doctor, played by Rachel McAdams. The villain of the piece, who wants to take all the magic and pervert it for his own power and use, Mads Mikkelsen. And Chiwetel Ejiofor is his colleague under the Ancient One, Baron Mordo, who can't believe this newcomer has come in with such a gift. The movie's been directed by Scott Derrickson, who did Sinister and a couple other low-budget horror films, and he's actually well-suited to this style, this kind of magnificent visual treat. This is one of the few films where you're going to hear me say, oh yeah, if you can, you must see it in IMAX 3D. It should be experienced that way. If it's a 3D film, I generally suggest IMAX for the greater candle power. I don't like the dimming of the 3D lenses. This is an ideal film to see in that format. I recommend Doctor Strange. Very entertaining. And if you like this kind of stuff, you're going to love this movie. Okay, let's get a little realer, if you will. Loving is a powerful yet understated, historical, but still totally relevant and a contemporarily topical movie, a docudrama with a heart and a mind and a noble purpose. It's the story of Richard and Mildred Loving, who are played by, respectively, Joel Edgerton, who often plays tough guy roles and has been in crap like Exodus, God and Kings, and in great films in his day like Zero Dark 30 and Wish You Were Here. He was the star of Warrior, and most recently he's been in Midnight Special, which conveniently enough was written and directed by the same guy who did Loving, Jeff Nichols. Okay, so this Richard and Mildred, an interracial couple who married and then had to fight for their right to be a family in Virginia, a state that was backward enough to consider their relationship illegal and immoral and constantly threatened them with jail. They were able to get married in D.C. This is basically back in the 50s and 60s, and their case, which was a major civil rights case, went to the Supreme Court in 1967. And this is a fantastic evocation of that. This movie shows the inhuman, bigoted, and petty-minded elements of society that existed back in the day and ran counter to human rights, and in all too many cases, I think, still linger in places in the 21st century. Jeff Nichols is the filmmaker who brought us the well-wrought, original, memorable, and inherently philosophical movies Mud, Take Shelter, and, as I said before, Midnight Special. And he goes full reality with Loving, but he captures the spiritual and emotional elements of this couple's story as well as the truth. Ruth Negga plays Mildred Loving, and you may or may not know who she is. She was on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as a woman who became an Inhuman, and she was also one of the stars of the original version of The Night Of, the British version, I think it was called Criminal Justice, and she played the victim in that. Ruth Negga has been in a few things, but this is the breakout role for her. She is wonderful in this, and one of the most beautiful things about this film is how it makes the personal political. You care about this couple. It really, really worked for me. Oddly enough, the movie was shot partially in Virginia, the state where this heinous story takes place. Well, eventually, inspiring story. And at the very end of the film, there's a little note that says, it's made in Virginia. It says, Virginia is for movie lovers. But apparently, Virginia was not always for real lovers. Anyway, I recommend Loving big time. It's going to be in the conversation at the end of the year during awards season. Hacksaw Ridge is a war movie based on a true story of a guy named Desmond Doss, played by Andrew Garfield, who you may know as one of the more recent Spider-Men. And this is set mostly in Okinawa, which was a brutal conflict, a brutal battle in World War II. And this is a guy who basically was a conscientious objector. Doss, working as a medic, saved the lives of 75 men. And in fact, they say that he didn't carry a weapon on the front lines. And maybe there might have been no one else who had that kind of chutzpah. But if you need more evidence that war is hell and that human courage, determination, and ingenuity can be astounding, Hacksaw Ridge will definitely do the trick. He was a guy who, understood that war, happens, but he did his best to kind of stop the killing on sight. Unbelievably brave, earned the Congressional Medal of Honor. And again, this is his story. Solid cast, including Teresa Palmer, the Aussie actress, Hugo Weaving, Sam Worthington, and even Vince Vaughn as the sergeant. This is nice that Vaughn gets involved in a movie of this caliber. And again, we've seen a lot of war movies, and let's be honest about it. It was directed by Mel Gibson, so people are going to go in with a chip on their shoulder. But I would say that it's worth seeing in genre. If you like or are inspired by war movies and tales of heroism, this guy is like a real-life Doctor Strange when you think about it, a medic who uses his mystical powers to save lives.
They've been wanting to make this movie for maybe the last 30 years. Movie companies have approached the idea of doing the movie but couldn't do it because he was still alive and wouldn't let it be made.
The humility on the is
Yeah.
evident in the portrayal. Yeah,
And
I
and
think it's
and when he died, the rights to his story went to the Seventh Day Adventist Church, who then still refused to allow it to be made. And in recent years, I guess somebody did some arm twisting, and finally the story is being told.
Well, it's good. It's a good film, and again, it's a powerful story. Hacksaw Ridge. So we're 3 for 3 so far. Trolls. We hit a little bump in the road with Trolls. I mean, it was nowhere near as terrible as I feared. It's an animated film, and another step in the continuing desire on the part of studios and various cartoon companies to plunder decades of pop culture for familiar, marketable properties. You remember they made a pretty cool couple of films based on the TV show The Addams Family that had been based on, one single panel cartoons in the New Yorker. I mean, people are looking for the old proof of concept, and Trolls as a concept, Trolls as cute little dolls have existed for a very long time, and so they figured, hey, we made some money off of Smurfs. Let's try Trolls. Is it better than the Smurfs? Was a headache better than an upset stomach? These are the questions we have to ask ourselves. It's kind of cute, fun for kids, and people who were behind Shrek are in control here in this thing. It's a DreamWorks movie, and you get voice work from Anna Kendrick as the troll leader, who's sort of perky and sweet, like Anna Kendrick oftentimes plays. And then she has, of course, opposition on the part of the troll named Branch. That's voiced by Justin Timberlake. And, this is your typical kind of cartoon adventure. And I kind of wish I could be more enthusiastic about it. There's some music. It's kind of a feel-good film. It's a little oversweet in my book. And ultimately, the positivity is, I guess, good for kids to get, and because there's nothing like a positive moral, and you do get that here in Trolls. But to me, it's imminently forgettable. And if it spawns a sequel, I may not bother to check it out. Let's wrap things up with The Eagle Huntress. The Eagle Huntress is a documentary about a 13-year-old girl who wants to be the first female in generations of her family to become an eagle hunter, which is, I guess, something that they've done all this time, to have a controlled and trained eagle. I guess it's a tribal thing in Kazakhstan, and the eagle is, in the thrall of the eagle hunter. It's a very strange master or mistress and pet relationship. And, what you do is, you just start when the eagles are very, very tiny, when they're little like hatchlings, and you train them from that point on. And, there's a competition involved, a contest, who can handle the eagle the best. And, it's amazing. It's kind of unbelievable that this stuff happens in the sticks and in other countries and rural areas there. But it's kind of a interesting comparison with the rise of female heroes, fictional ones in movies these days, like Wonder Woman and such. And oddly enough, the narrator of this is Daisy Ridley from Star Wars, who played Rey, a female heroine. And I think that kind of is sort of sneaky, kind of a sneak attack on the viewer, because you kind of get the connection between the two entities. A woman finding her power, and this whole thing about respecting nature is very, very powerful. It's a very beautiful film as well. The documentary was directed by Otto Bell, and it's kind of a gorgeous experience. And it's like, another world. It's not another world like Doctor Strange's mystical dimensions, but man, it almost feels like it occasionally. And I would also recommend The Eagle Huntress. There you go. Good movies.
So you had a pretty good week, okay?
Yeah, I'd say so. Watching anything on the television, or have you seen any films you like lately?
No, not really. I don't go to the movies much anymore.
Well, even at home, streaming.
Yeah, I really haven't seen anything. I'll tell you, I still think that, a lot of times series in their second season have a tendency to fall apart, And I got to tell you, I still think Lucifer is better this year almost than it was last year. I love that show. And I finally decided it's not a kind of sci-fi fantasy show. It's a family drama. So
the introduction of the mother, it's fascinating what they've done with it, and I have to say kudos to Tom Ellis, who plays the devil on Earth. This TV show was based on a comic book character created by Neil Gaiman, who did The Sandman and other renowned and beloved characters. And what's crazy about this is that it seemed to parallel another show that was on Fox and is coming back, sadly, with totally out of gas, a show called Sleepy Hollow, in terms of having a weird or otherworldly male lead and a more grounded and conventional female co-star. And Lucifer does the same thing with the devil on Earth, and a former softcore porn actress turned detective in L.A. And as someone who lives in Los Angeles part-time, I can tell you they make great use of the locations and a lot of the attitudes in Los Angeles. I get a kick out of it.
Too bad it's shot in Vancouver, but,
Well, they do a lot of exterior stuff.
They do some exterior stuff here and there, but basically it's shot in Vancouver.
It captures the L.A. vibe.
I mean, New York, when they shoot shows in New York, they shoot shows in New York. I mean, Gotham is shot here.
Right.
Luke Cage shot here. My Neighborhood, So anyway, that's it. That's all I got.
Okay, cool, man. Great checking in. You can kind of connect with me on Twitter @CultureBlaster. Or you can go to Michael Snyder's Culture Blast page on Facebook, and we'll be back next week with more reviews and such.
Thank you very much, Michael. And for the rest of you out there, there's more GABNet coming up right now.